They didn't have to meet arbitrary sales targets or fear being laid off if they didn't meet those targets. And furthermore, the people in charge forbade them from cramming the game with anything whose only purpose was to increase revenue and didn't serve the game design. They didn't treat their developers like numbers on a spreadsheet. They didn't treat their players as users to exploit. And they didn't make decisions they knew were short-sighted in function of a bonus or politics. They knew that if you put the game and...
All right, buckle up because we've got a stacked lineup of wild gaming stories. Straight out of 2025's Did That Really Just Happen? File. First, we've got a YouTuber in Italy facing actual jail time for reviewing handheld emulators. Yeah, authorities kicked down his door and confiscated his consoles. Retro gaming just went from nostalgia trip to legal minefield because copyright law in Europe is no joke. Then, Ubisoft is flexing their golden rule about microtransactions, claiming they're all about player happiness and optional fun. Meanwhile, your wallet is probably hiding under the couch. We also saw Microsoft finally shut down their movies and TV store. So if you're still hoarding digital movies on your Xbox, you might want to start backing them up or praying the servers stay on longer than your favorite streaming show. And Helldivers 2, the devs at Arrowhead are doubling down, promising years of chaos and bug-slaying glory. Helldivers 3, don't hold your breath. It's light years away. For now, just enjoy the drama as players try to rename a city Gun, while the devs desperately beg for mercy. Finally, Clair Obscure. Expedition 33 is showing the world how to build a Game of the Year contender with a tiny core team and surgical outsourcing. Proof that you don't need 1,000 people if you play your cards right. Let's dive into each of these, because honestly, it's been a week for the gaming history books. Okay, let's talk about Remedy's big multiplayer swing, FBC Firebreak. Now, if you're a fan of Control or Alan Wake, you probably expected something wild, right? Like post-it notes turning into murder machines, cosmic janitors, whatever. Instead, what we got, well, let's just say it hasn't exactly set Twitch on fire, or even sparked a sizzle on Steam. Picture this. Remedy, the studio behind Max Payne and Quantum Break, finally dives into Left 4 Dead territory. PvE chaos, science fiction horror. And you'd think, hey, this is Remedy. Surely, this is about to be Game of the Year, right? Instead, FBC Firebreak launches, lands on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. And yeah, you can probably find more people in a blockbuster these days than you can in a Firebreak lobby. But here's the kicker. Remedy isn't giving up. Nope, they put out a whole post, basically saying, yeah, we know most of you dipped out faster than you do from a family group chat, but we're not done yet. They're promising a big update in September and teasing even more for the holidays. For now, though, radio silence. Like literal radio silence. We'll be back with news, but if it gets quiet, don't worry, we're just in the lab cooking. And let's get real for a sec. Remedy straight up admitted the onboarding is rough. People hop in, get smacked around by some interdimensional paperclips, and bounce before they even learn how to reload. The fix? New tutorials, actual in-game tips, and maybe a little less figure it out, loser energy. They're also overhauling the gunplay. No more, here's a pea shooter. Upgrade it for 200 hours. You get the heavy artillery from the jump, then you can slap on mods and get weird with it. 3 new heavy guns are coming too. So maybe next time you'll actually feel like a boss instead of a janitor fighting haunted office supplies. And about the levels. Remedy's trimming the fat. Boring jobs, gone. New handcrafted stuff on the way with new zones, enemies, status effects, the whole Control style fever dream. Look, the Control universe is literally made for this kind of game. Infinite weirdness, limitless vibes. But Remedy's fighting an uphill battle here. Competing with Fortnite and Roblox is like bringing a sport to a chainsaw fight. But hey, Warhammer. Dark Tide turned things around, so never say never. I'll be honest, when I played Firebreak, I got my ass kicked and left faster than I did during my first Dark Souls run. Turrets took forever to build, and by the time I set them up, they'd get wrecked by some IKEA demon. So yeah, I bounced. Sorry, Remedy. But there's hope. With these updates, maybe this will become the game it was always meant to be. Until then, I'll keep one eye open and the other on Steam charts. So, Remedy, the ball's in your court. Don't let those post-it note monsters down. All right, Cyberpunk 2077 just dropped patch 2.3. And honestly, Night City just got a massive glow up, especially if you're rolling with a PS5 Pro. Not only do we get new cars and self-driving modes that make you feel like you're watching one of those those 10 hours of relaxing train rides YouTube videos. But there's a sneaky little performance boost hiding in this update too. People are legit posting screenshots showing Cyberpunk hitting 83 frames per second inside the city. That's not just smooth, that's did I just buy a new PC territory? All thanks to VRR. If you're like, wait, what's VRR? Don't sweat it. It's variable refresh rate, which is just a nerdy way of saying your game and your TV finally become best friends and stop arguing about what frame to show next. No more ugly screen tears, just pure eye candy. Here's the wild part. With this patch, PS5 Pro users are seeing 80 frames per second in performance mode and a pretty slick 40 frames per second in quality mode if you've got one of those fancy 120 Hz and VRR displays. And yeah, 40 frames per second might not sound insane on paper, but trust me, once you try it, you'll never want to go back to 30. Meanwhile, over on Reddit, PS5 folks are straight up celebrating. Yes, lads, says one dude, probably while air punching his TV. But Xbox players? Yeah, not so much. Right now, Series X and S are kinda stuck at 60 frames per second max, no matter what you do. Even quality mode is capped at 30. Sorry, Xbox crew, looks like CDPR left you on read this time. Moral of the story? If you've got a PS5 Pro, now's the time to cruise Night City. If you're on Xbox, well, maybe go touch some grass while you wait for the next patch. Alright, Ubisoft just dropped some spicy news at their latest shareholder meeting. We're officially getting a new first-person Ghost Recon game. Yeah, you heard that right. Ghost Recon is going full Call of Duty, and apparently this is Ubisoft's way of flexing their live service muscles again. Because if there's one thing Ubisoft loves more than towers on a map, it's live service everything. So Yves Guillemot, the Ubisoft boss, gets up and starts bragging about how Rainbow Six Siege is still printing money and then casually drops. Oh yeah, we're cooking up new stuff for Ghost Recon and The Division too. And then their CFO chimes in about Tencent money, saying it's all getting pumped into the next big-name franchises. Ghost Recon's just the first one. They're also hyping up The Crew, For Honor, and more live games. Because, shocker, they want you logged in for the rest of your natural life. Insider Gaming already leaked that the next Ghost Recon is codenamed Over and is going to be set during some made-up war with a heavy dose of that modern warfare vibe. First person only, gritty. Less of the hide in a bush for 40 minutes Ghost Recon, more of the kick in the door, guns blazing type beat. Word is, they're aiming for an internal alpha later this year, and if everything goes right, you might actually be playing this by late 2026. So yeah, you've got time to train for your next imaginary war. Honestly, are you hyped or just bracing for another Ubisoft open world checklist game? Let me know. So, Ubisoft, who basically invented the here's your game and here's a million things you can buy in it formula, wants you to know that microtransactions, they're not evil. Nope. In fact, they claim these are all about respecting the player experience and making the game more fun. Because nothing says fun like getting nickel and dimed to make your character look slightly cooler or to skip a grind, right? According to Ubisoft, their golden rule is that every premium game should be fully enjoyable without spending a cent more. Microtransactions, totally optional. Supposedly, they're just there to add a bit of spice. A little extra fun. A shortcut here, a new hat there. All of it, in their words, enriches the player experience. And get this, they double down and say the well-being and safety of players is the top priority, right up there with responsible monetization mechanisms. Because, you know, nothing says we care about you like making the skip grind button $9.99. But don't worry, they also mention their code of conduct, promising fair and transparent monetization and a fun, engaging, and immersive experience. All about optionality and fairness, as if you have any option but to buy the XP boost if you ever want to see the end credits. So yeah, next time you see another microtransaction in a Ubisoft game, the movies and TV store on Xbox and Windows is officially dead. Yep, as of today, you can't buy any new movies or TV shows from the Microsoft Store. Not on your Xbox, not on your PC, not even if you beg Phil Spencer himself. Here's the good news, sort of. Anything you already bought, you can still watch it, but only using Microsoft's clunky movies and TV app. Don't even think about moving it to another service unless you're lucky enough to have some stuff on movies anywhere in the US. Otherwise, you're stuck right where you are. And refunds? Yeah, keep dreaming. Honestly, this shouldn't be a shocker. Ever since Microsoft killed off Groove Music back in 2017, it's just been been a countdown to see which service they'd pull the plug on next. Remember Zune Marketplace? Or Xbox Video? Or, like any Microsoft Media thing that lasted more than 5 years? Yeah, me neither. So now, if you want to actually buy movies or TV shows, it's back to the usual suspects. Amazon, Apple TV, Netflix, and a dozen other apps Microsoft is happy to shove you toward. Microsoft says they'll support your old purchases, but let's be real. Everybody's just hoping they keep the servers on longer than a Taylor Swift relationship. Moral of the story, if you're still buying digital movies from Microsoft, maybe start burning some DVDs, just in case. Let's check in on the Helldivers 2 saga. And no, Helldivers 3 is not around the corner, so you can put your hype back in the drawer. Arrowhead's top brass, including CEO Shams Georgiani, hopped onto Discord and basically said, look, we're knee-deep in Helldivers 2 chaos and loving every minute of it. Helldivers 3, ask us again in, like, a decade. But honestly, can you blame them? Helldivers 2 is still the main course, and these devs aren't about to abandon it for the next shiny sequel. Georgiani's words, we're focusing on the here and now. Translation, more bugs, more explosions, more reasons to absolutely lose your mind in co-op. As for whatever Game 6 is, yeah, that's apparently in the works by a tiny squad, but good luck finding out more than that. Arrowhead's keeping it locked up tighter than Super Earth's best bug spray formula. Meanwhile, there's this whole city renaming drama in the Helldivers community. Arrowhead asked players to vote on a new name for Remembrance, a city they just rebuilt in-game. Of course, the internet being the internet. Everyone wants to call it Gun. Georgiani, not a fan. I really don't like the name Gun personally, but not my decision. Democracy in action, folks. He also said the team wants to add DLSS and FSR frame generation for better performance. But, and this is classic dev speak, there are other more fundamental problems to fix first. Translation, frame gen is on the whiteboard, but the office coffee machine probably takes priority. So if you're waiting for Helldivers 3 or dreaming up some wild Arrowhead secret project, just relax. They're not even done breaking Helldivers 2 yet. And honestly, neither are we. Okay, you want hardcore? How about this? An Italian YouTuber could be facing actual jail time, like up to 3 years behind bars, all for showing off Android-based handhelds that can run emulators. Yeah, we're talking about those little devices that look like Game Boys and PSPs, loaded up with every retro game you can think of. Seems harmless, right? Not in Italy. So, here's what went down. Once, Where Nerd, a YouTuber who reviews everything from cheap handhelds to modded consoles, got a literal knock on the door from Italy's Guardia di Finanza. Think financial police, but way less fun than they sound. They showed up with a search warrant and started grabbing every handheld they could find. Over 30 consoles gone. Plus, they demanded his emails and DMS with Chinese manufacturers. His alleged crime? Promotion of pirated, copyrighted materials. Not selling ROMs, not hacking online, but just making videos showing these devices running retro games, many of which come preloaded straight from the factory. According to Italian law, this promotion is enough to get you 3 years of hard time. No, really. This isn't just some slap on the wrist. We're talking about Italy, the country where the government literally forced Google to block illegal soccer streams by poisoning their DNS. These people do not mess around when it comes to copyright. It gets better. The creators of these consoles, all in China, untouchable. But YouTubers like Once Were Nerd, easy targets. So now, with Sony and Nintendo's names popping up in legal docs, he's staring down a possible court case and the total shutdown of his YouTube channel before even being found guilty. And don't think this is a fluke. Italian authorities can bring these cases themselves. They don't even have to tell you who complained. Though, come on, it's probably Nintendo. Who else sues over everything from ROMs to fan art? So yeah, welcome to 2025, where showing off a cheap handheld could land you in prison. All because the retro game scene is apparently more dangerous than, well, half the stuff actually happening online. Alright, so here's some real behind-the-scenes game dev tea. Clair Obscure, Expedition 33, yeah, the RPG everyone's drooling over right now, didn't just pull this off with a tiny in-house team working 24/7 in some French basement. Nope, turns out they played the outsourcing game like absolute pros, and that's probably why the game feels so tight. Mark Dara, ex-Dragon Age boss and certified RPG wizard, just dropped a YouTube breakdown on this exact topic. His take? Sandfall Interactive's approach to outsourcing was so laser-focused, it let the actual core team lock in and make magic. Instead of scrambling to fix janky animations animations at 2 a.m. And get this, while the core Sandfall squad was like 30 people, tiny by AAA standards, they shipped out tons of the heavy lifting to outside teams. Animation, QA, which by the way, was apparently bigger than the in-house team. Performance testing, audio, even localization, all handled by specialists. But stuff like level art and the overall vibe, they kept that in-house, guarding it like the recipe for French bread. Dara says the real genius here is they only outsourced parts that could be outsourced, like animations for turn-based combat, where you don't need the perfect Dark Souls dodge timing, and just grafted those right into the core vision. No messy 12-way Zoom calls about where to put a single crate. So, you end up with a small crew where everyone knows everyone, can move fast, and don't have to micromanage 10 other studios. That's how you get a Metacritic darling, while everyone else is still arguing about whose turn it is to fix the shaders. Bottom line, Clair Obscure is living proof that smart outsourcing can make a small team look like a powerhouse. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real secret to their game being so damn good. Alright, we've got a fat stack of PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to break down. So let's get straight into it. First up, Sony just doubled down on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Mark Cerny, the mad scientist behind PlayStation hardware, has confirmed that a major graphics upgrade is dropping for the PS5 Pro in 2026. And we're not talking about a little touch-up. We're talking full-blown, holy crap, is this a new console? Kind of upgrade. So here's what's going down. Sony's working with AMD, using machine learning tech to beef up their PSSR system. If you don't speak nerd, PSSR is basically Sony's version of DLSS. It's a way to make games look sharper and run smoother without melting your console. But here's the kicker. Cerny says the full, no-compromise version of PSSR is dropping next year. And this isn't just some half-baked update. It's the real deal. And devs will have a much easier time plugging it into their games. That means prettier games, better performance, and a lot less complaining from developers who struggled to make it work when the Pro first dropped. It's all thanks to Project Prometheus. Yeah, Sony loves their code names, which sped things up way faster than Cerny expected. And fun fact, the algorithm is already out on PC as FSR4, but PlayStation's getting its own full-fat version that's just as good, if not better. Bottom line, the PS5 Pro is about to level up, and if you care about visuals, this is the update to watch. Alright, next up, open world fans, listen up. Where Winds Meet is getting its final pre-release beta test on both PC and PlayStation 5 from July 24th to 31st. If you want in, you can sign up right now. This one's set in ancient China, with both single-player and MMO-style multiplayer. You can join guilds, compete in duels, or just explore a massive world. Personally, I'm way more excited for the single-player side. MMO stuff isn't usually my jam. But hey, let me know in the comments if you're trying the beta or just here for the solo adventure vibes. And now, the big question. Did Xbox and Microsoft bet on the wrong horse with Game Pass? Let's be honest. Game Pass started out as this huge world-changing idea. One monthly fee for a mountain of games, all-you-can-eat style. Sounds great on paper, right? But here we are, years later, and the hype has seriously died down. Microsoft spent billions buying studios, Bethesda, Activision Blizzard, the whole 9 yards, just to stuff Game Pass with bangers. But guess what? Growth has stalled on console. It's doing a little better on PC, but not enough to save the day. And here's the truth. Most gamers just don't have time to play 20 new games a month. We aren't binge-watching TV shows. We pick a couple games and stick with them for months. So all those Netflix for games, dreams, turns out it doesn't really fit the way most people play. Plus, let's be real. Sony and Nintendo were never going to let Game Pass on their platforms. And now, after years of trying to brute force their way to the top, Xbox is stuck in this weird limbo. They're pivoting, turning into more of a third-party publisher, putting their games everywhere. PlayStation, Nintendo, PC, trying to stay relevant. But what happened to Xbox as a brand? Where's the identity? The truth is, Game Pass is a solid service. It's just not the revolution Microsoft was hoping for. Now, with studio layoffs, canceled projects, and fans totally confused about what Xbox even is anymore, the pressure is on. Phil Spencer's still steering the ship, but let's be honest, the dream of Xbox as the Netflix of gaming is kind of fading. The gaming industry just did something it's never done before. Straight up admitted who's wrecking it. No corporate PR spin, no behind-the-scenes whispers. Actual devs are now publicly blaming investors for ruining award-winning games. How wild is that? For years, the money guys wrote the checks, everyone kept their mouths shut, and studios got gutted quietly. Not anymore. This week, something snapped. 3 studios got absolutely screwed in ways that, just a couple years ago, would have been covered up and forgotten. The Game Developer Collective ran a survey, and 64% of devs say the industry's biggest problem is, yep, unreasonable investor expectations. That's not some hot take. When 2/3 of the people actually making games all point at the same villain, you know it's real. And I've got receipts. Some of this stuff is so brutal, it'll piss you off. Take Krafton and Unknown Worlds. Krafton bought them with a $250 million bonus dangling over their heads if they could hit Subnautica 2's sales targets by the end of 2025. So what did Krafton do? They delayed the game to 2026, just past the bonus deadline. No payout. Then fired the creative team for not delivering. Meanwhile, the founders are yelling that the game was ready, and this was just a financial move. But hey, Krafton's letting 40 employees split a tiny sliver of the bonus. How generous, right? And it's not just them. Microsoft went to ZeniMax and straight up told 200 devs their secret MMO was dead. Years of work just gone. Devs said their lives got upended overnight. Over at Testronic, Secret 6 Madrid, the team that worked on The Last of Us Part 2 and Lords of the Fallen, they got starved of contracts for 2 years, then shuttered so their work could be shipped to a cheaper office. Employees said, they tried to choke us from the start. Absolutely brutal. But let's not pretend this is new. Remember what happened to Obsidian with Fallout? New Vegas? They made one of the best RPGs ever, sold 5 million copies, brought in $300 million bucks, but their bonus was tied to a Metacritic score of 85. They got an 84. Missed millions by a single point, and the team got nothing extra. That 1-point miss literally led to layoffs. And for what? A number. The problem isn't that games cost too much to make. It's that investors don't actually get what they're buying. They want instant returns, not good games. They dangle impossible earn-out bonuses and then pull the rug out before devs can hit them. Look at Arcane Studios. Bethesda forced them to call their game Prey, even though it had nothing to do with the original. The founder called it insulting and had to lie in interviews. He quit because he wasn't even in control of his own studio anymore. Arcane Austin, destroyed by Redfall, another victim of chasing trends instead of letting devs do what they do best. Microsoft did the same thing to Lionhead after buying them, forced them to chase trends, canceled their projects, and eventually shut them down. Fable, a legendary series, left to rot for years. And don't get me started on BioWare. EA bought them, tied a massive bonus to performance metrics, forced the studio into live service games, and then watched as the original talent jumped ship. The sad part? It's always the most ambitious, creative RPGs that get hit hardest. Investors don't want deep stories or world building. They want predictable, quick cash. Ever wonder why indie studios like Larian can still make bangers? Because they stayed independent, took their time, and made what they wanted. The result? Baldur's Gate 3. Over 200 Game of the Year awards, massive sales, and no financial overlords breathing down their necks. But here's the reality. Buy broken, rushed games from these big studios, and you're just funding this nightmare. Support the indies, the ones with creative freedom. And next time a studio gets bought and the games go downhill, that's not an accident. That's the system.
They didn't have to meet arbitrary sales targets or fear being laid off if they didn't meet those targets. And furthermore, the people in charge forbade them from cramming the game with anything whose only purpose was to increase revenue and didn't serve the game design. They didn't treat their developers like numbers on a spreadsheet. They didn't treat their players as users to exploit. And they didn't make decisions they knew were short-sighted in function of a bonus or politics. They knew that if you put the game and the team first, the revenue will follow. They were driven by idealism and wanted players to have fun. And they realized that if the developers didn't have fun, nobody was going to have any fun. They understood the value of respect, that if they treated their developers and players well, those same developers and players would forgive them when things didn't go as planned. But above all, they cared about their game because they loved games. It's really that simple.
If you want to be ahead of all the gaming leaks and news, specifically PlayStation news, time for you to subscribe. And as always, a like on the video is very much appreciated.